Something that I've not done in a long time on this channel is my podcast Flow Space, where I bring on people, we talk about their life goals, ambitions, and just chat with interesting people, right? And so I thought it would be a great way to get back into that this new year. And I wanted to start out with a creator. So I found Dr. Jin Kwan's YouTube channel, and he's kind of in the self improvement, productivity niche, I would say. And this was a fantastic conversation. I had a great time. He's a very interesting person to talk to, and I think that you're going to enjoy it. And a reminder that Flow Space is a podcast for anyone to come on, viewers included. So if you want to be on the podcast, you can sign up with the link in the description. So here is Dr. Jin Kwan.
I've been dying to know what's the story behind that. Like, how'd you get into Minecraft and then decide to shift gears the way that you did?
Well, I got into Minecraft like any young 20 something because I just grew up playing it, and it felt like
Sure,
the natural progression of what I could make content about. Because
sure.
everyone at some point probably says, could I be a YouTuber? Could I make
Yeah,
content?
yeah, yeah.
But then I'm
Sure.
like, what would I actually do? Like, what would be my format? But I felt like Minecraft would be a very easy way to film because you're kind of like in a
Mm,
world. And then
yeah.
I thought about the content that I like to watch, which was primarily not so much self improvement, but kind of like comfort food content, where
Mm,
not in the food sense, but like in the sense that you watch it because it's comforting, or like what you said about being in the room with a creator and you feel like it's just a friend there. It just feels like a friendly
mm,
vibe, you know? So I
mm,
thought, why don't I do something in Minecraft, a game that everyone loves, and then I combine it with that kind of like comfort content where someone's just talking, like a
mm,
talking head, but you're in Minecraft. And then I just combined the two. And I guess it was innovative enough that people
mm,
watched it because I think it was my fourth video was how to enjoy Minecraft again, where I had talked about, after playing the game for 10 years, it gets stale and we all need to
mm,
reignite our passion, find new ways to play the game. And that is still my most popular video. And then
mm,
from
mm,
there, I didn't know what I was doing at all because I wasn't used to that immediate success. But I just started making
mm,
videos about gameplay because that's a huge part of Minecraft. People just like to see you play the game.
mm,
And
mm,
then I switched into doing a Minecraft server where I brought in my community. So people that were just like subscribers of the channel could then be in videos with me. We could all hop on. And I called that the Flow SMP, which is
nice.
survival multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
And that was good for probably June to August of 2023. It was a really, really good
Mm,
time. But like anything, not everything lasts forever. So then I continued making those kind of self-improvement comfort Minecraft talking videos for a few months after that, but I started to
mm,
feel like I was exhausting the not just the efficacy of my message, but also my personal interest in the format. And I just felt like I was starting to be on this hedonic treadmill of making content that I'm not really that passionate about. Like I'm
mm,
kind of halfway there. And so I decided to bite the bullet, and in October, I think, October 25th, actually, I still remember the
yeah.
date, was the first date that I did that in-person video on the river, where I was just
Mm,
setting up my camera. And I guess it was a big shock to everyone because
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't hype up a face reveal or anything.
Yeah,
And
sure.
then, to kind of, like I said, kind of sparse success with the in-person videos.
Mm,
It is a big shift from Minecraft, but ultimately, I think that is me landing on the most authentic version of me in the content.
mm,
And also around that time, I started doing a podcast called Flow Space, which that's what this is basically.
yeah.
And I started inviting on, again, people of the community, subscribers, viewers that just wanted to talk about life problems, ambitions, their goals, just even just talk with me. And then I started getting on actual creators like people like yourself. And then it just I've taken a break, but I think that's really going to blossom into something great this year because I'm
Mm,
back on it. I've been doing daily episodes of that, and then
mm.
in conjunction with these tabletop talking head videos, I think that is the future of the channel.
I think that's great, man. I think that's great. It takes a lot of courage to make a shift like that,
Yeah,
right? A lot of people, I think, would be really satisfied with the sort of the attention that you've gotten with your Minecraft type content, the success that you've reached. A lot of people would kill for that.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people would just continue on that because not necessarily the easy thing to do, but maybe the easier thing to do, even if they feel a little bit of, I don't know if you call it cognitive dissonance, but it's not what they necessarily want to do just because it's easy and it's working. So I think it takes a lot of courage to step away from something that you know works to something you feel more passionately about and something that's more true to yourself. So honestly, good for you, man. That's a huge pat on the back. That's a really tough move to make. And if you feel more satisfied with the type of content that you're making, which it seems like you are, like that's what matters.
And I appreciate that. You are definitely right that it. I think it almost teeters on irresponsibility though a bit when you do that kind of thing, because
Okay.
I had started out the channel also doing Minecraft mod review videos because
Sure.
I had gotten sick of vanilla Minecraft where there's no additions. It's just the base game. And I thought, what if I got like, 80, 90, 100 mods that are like pretty similar to the vanilla experience and just package that up into a mod pack? And so I made a series of 3 videos where I was, saying like these are the best mods to enhance vanilla Minecraft. And those 3 videos combined probably have like almost close to 1 million views. And that amount of views is equal now to, I don't know, at least 100 of my talking videos where I'm at the table, like in terms of just the
Yeah.
raw view number. And so I'm
Right.
like, I mean, I'm still very much going to stick by my word and do what's authentic to me. But it's like, how do I personally justify walking away from that amount of both social and commercial success? And actually, I think that's a great question for you as well, because one of your videos you talked about leaving your very high paying medical job, right?
Yeah.
And like, how did you justify that to yourself when you know that you're walking away from something very big?
So yeah, that's a good parallel to draw, I suppose. And I would like to pose the same question to you in a minute, but I suppose for me, it's I've done the job, or I did the job for a number of months, and there are aspects of it that I certainly find rewarding. Money is an important thing that we can't escape from, right? It's everybody needs money and everybody likes money, but at the same time, it's not. We're at a stage, I think, right now in our 20s where I assume you don't have kids, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. So, you know, we have or I have my parents that I can sort of rely on for some financial support, housing, this kind of thing. I don't have any dependents. I don't have a spouse. So I don't have much to lose at this point. If I quit my job and decide to experiment a little bit and find something that I actually like, it's some money that is not being made, but the payoff is not, the consequences are not disastrous. There's only so far that I can fall, right? I have some sort of a safety net. The proposal of whether I want to continue in this job that I do not necessarily find completely fulfilling for this degree of money that I don't really need right now, right? I can live comfortably without making this amount of money versus maybe sacrificing a little bit of that income to pursue something that I actually like. I don't think that you can put a price tag on that right now. Of course, if I had a family to feed and this kind of thing, then that money is a lot more important. But at this stage right now in my 20s, it's not necessarily something that I need urgently. And so I figured that if there's a time to figure out what I want to do and to sacrifice money to do what I want to do, now's the time to do it.
Well, what's interesting is that one of my good friends has asked me before
Yeah.
if I was to hypothetically get a job or an offer where maybe I would get paid an exorbitant amount of money, but I had to leave YouTube behind and I was no longer
Mm-hmm.
allowed to do that passion of mine, like what would
Mm-hmm.
that have to be? Or like what would I have to do from giving up my current easy remote job to going to some in-person job that I don't like, right? And I was like, I mean, it would have to be in the several hundred thousands, like a massive amount of money, because I feel like even in the face of success, like with those Minecraft
Mm-hmm.
videos where I knew it was going well and I walked away from it, I know that
Mm-hmm.
that's ultimately going to be worth it. Maybe not financially initially, but definitely the long-term fulfillment. And as you say, I mean, even at our age, money is not super paramount. It's not like it's going to make or break your entire career. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, maybe they're not in that level of position of a high paying medical job, but they're in some sort of like crossroads where they have to decide, is this really the path for me? And I think that this is the kind of thing where, like, as you say, it's an invaluable thing. There's no price tag that I can put on giving up my dream, you know, because otherwise, to me, what's the point of even living?
I suppose at some point we have to consider what is it that we want money for. I think people lack sort of specific goals and things that they necessarily want to do or things that they want to be. And the goal turns into generalized, I just want to make a lot of money.
Right.
Seems to be a common thing among a lot of my peers. And so I guess the question is like, what do you want to do with all of that money? Right? Is it a means to an end? Is it just to have it as for the social status? It seems a little bit, if you're working a job 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you don't like it to make a lot of money, it doesn't seem like a very good payout.
Well, I actually do have fairly concrete answers to that kind of question because
Okay,
because
sure.
I do have that ambition of making a ton of money, but not
Mhm,
because of an aimless desire for power or vanity. It's literally just
mhm,
because I want to be able to, by the time I'm, say, 30, be semi-retired. I can do
mhm,
things like make content if I want to, but I'm not on this like treadmill of trying to
mhm,
get that next short out, the next long form video out. And I'm able to build my own house for my own family. I can have my own space. And I mentioned this in a previous video where my friends and I, we all got really excited about the prospect of maybe buying a few hundred acres of land somewhere, and we divvied up
mhm.
and we can all build our own houses, and then we can walk to each other's houses and have a little community and not just see each other once a year, but maybe once a day, you know?
Sure,
And
yeah.
to facilitate a dream like that, you have to have a ton of money. So
Mm,
it's not because I want to just, you know, have like the nice Balenciaga bag or some stupid, or maybe not stupid. I mean, some people enjoy that kind of thing, but to me, that would be stupid and wasteful. But real grounded things like community and a
mm,
nice home that just there's no getting around the price tag. And I have to work hard
mm.
and make a lot of money to do that.
And so it's a means to an end for you then.
In that regard, yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like I've justified it in the sense that
Mhm,
it's not just for the sense of clout or like
mhm,
look at how cool I am on Instagram with this, you know,
mhm,
purple Bugatti or something
mhm,
extremely
mhm.
flashy. You know,
Right.
it's like actually to better the lives of my family and my friends
Mhm,
and myself in a way. I mean,
mhm.
I would be lying if I said there's no ego attached to it. It would be amazing to
Sure.
say that you've been able to do what you have. Like I'm sure the top streamers that make millions of dollars a month on YouTube, they have an ego to some sense, and it feels amazing, I'm sure. But
Mm,
as you say, if you have no reason as to why you're doing it, then like what? Like here's actually a good example. My girlfriend, she has, well, kind of an ex-friend at this point, more of a friend that she used to have, and she
sure.
wants to be a neurosurgeon, I believe.
Mhm,
And she has said on many occasions that it's purely for the money. It's not because she wants to be the world's
mhm,
greatest neurosurgeon. It's not because she has a passion for it or even helping people. It's just because it's a high paying field. And when my girlfriend has asked her, like, but is there anything else fueling that fire? And she's like, no, I just want to make money. And I feel like that is inherently very fragile of a reason
mm.
because your world can quickly shatter into pieces when you realize that there's a lot more to the field than you thought. Or once you get all the money, it's like, now what? Like, what was the actual
Right.
reason for doing all that?
So for yourself then, how do you reconcile those two things in that you would like to do what you love today now, but you also need the money to have some degree of freedom in the future in your decision to move from what could have potentially been a very lucrative career in making gaming content. I suppose what was your thought process behind maybe I'll do this for a few years, I'll make some money, enough money to get the ball rolling in that I can leave this stuff behind, maybe do what I love, collect enough capital to do the things that I want to do. Why then shift from that to I need to do what I love today?
Well, I guess what you said earlier in that I'm still young enough that money is not critical. And
Mm,
I'm probably at least 8 years away from that dream of mine of building that property. And it's not
hmm
like I'm 29 and I have to do this right now, you know?
hmm
Um, but also, I would not say that by me switching to the content that I do now, I have given up my ability to fulfill that dream. It's just
hmm
probably going to take a little bit more time, or it won't be as straightforward as just cranking out Fortnite videos, Minecraft videos, something that anyone could probably do. I know that there's plenty of very, very successful self-improvement, maybe even just personality-based creators that make a lot of money off of their personality. And it's not like by me abandoning the gaming content that I can't make money. It's just probably going to be a little bit less straightforward than it would have been if I just kept the road. But I do feel like if I had kept the road, I might have had an equally difficult time, because sure, I might have been making more money, but the slog of making each video that I don't really want to make would be a lot greater. And so I don't even know if I would have reached the goal if I stayed that way, because I might have just run out of steam.
So I want to talk about that for a second. So you have a little bit of a runway, and so you feel confident that you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve in the time that you have left. Is that right? So how do you feel about, how to phrase this? I suppose, how confident are you in your ability to achieve what you would like to? Do you have any sorts of doubt about your ability to do what you want to do? Are there any fears surrounding that? Or do you feel like this is definitely something that I'll be able to achieve?
Zero doubt.
Zero doubt.
And
100% confidence.
I mean, call that naivety, but I have always maintained this mantra that I will figure it out. And everything that I've done in the past year on YouTube was completely because I applied my, ambition and said, I'm going to figure out what camera to buy. I'm going to figure out, how do I make cinematic Minecraft videos? How am I going to make a thumbnail? And none of this was taught to me. I taught it to myself. And I think a lot of big entrepreneurs and business people will say this thing of, how hard can it be? And that's the kind of that's the message that they have told themselves throughout their career. And it usually is a lot harder than they thought. But that level of ignorance is almost a good thing. It's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where you don't know how hard it can really be, so you're almost more willing to get into it, versus if you knew all of the things that could go wrong and then you stop yourself from even trying in the first place. If I knew truly how difficult it was to start Coca-Cola or some massive conglomerate business that I could not even fathom running, then I probably would never start. But in my little, baby entrepreneur brain, I'm like, well, they're just selling drinks and they have a manufacturing business and they distribute them. Like, how hard can it really be, And I think you kind of have to delude yourself a little bit, not so much that you become overconfident and then you completely flop, but a healthy amount of confidence goes a very long way.
I respect that.
What do you think? Tell me about your opinion on
that. So I feel a little bit less shy sharing my side of this after hearing what you said. I had a conversation with my best friend. He's really into music, right? He's really into producing music. He started maybe a couple of years ago. And music's an industry where it's really, really difficult to succeed, right? I mean, similar to sort of content creation, entrepreneurship. If you look at the stats, right, it's staggeringly out of our favor, right? But we're having a conversation about this, and we're saying, how do you rate yourself, right? How do you stack yourself up against the odds? How likely do you think that it'll be that you will succeed or I will succeed? And the answer from the both of us was, it's inevitable, right? It's like, it's 100%. And there's a part of my brain that's thinking, that's unreasonable, right? You look at the odds, right? This is ridiculous. But the other sort of less rational, more emotional self, I suppose, if we can put it that way, is like, no, there's if I stick to this thing for this runway that I have the next several years, like, there is no possible way that it will not go the way that I intend for it to go. And so you're right, there's certainly a little bit of naivety there, but if it gives us I suppose, the confidence, the juice to keep going, I can't say that it's necessarily a bad thing.
I actually relate to the music bit quite a bit. I and one of my good friends, Jack, we are both very much into music, and almost to the point of that we've had conversations of like, could we be an electronic music duo where we're actually like performing and touring and making music that makes us money. And that is no different to me in the sense that content creation music is the same thing as video. It's just a different format. But I am more realistic with my abilities in that while I think I make decent music, I don't think I make Grammy Award winning music. And
Hmm.
I think having a bit of humility and recognizing the limits of your own talent is important. And not to say that you should just stop if you think that, oh, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not even going to try. But I've been making music for a long time now. And I think that it's good enough, but it's not going to be playing at, the Super Bowl or something. And
Sure.
so in that regard, I am a little bit more realistic that, yeah, I'm probably not going to be playing at Coachella, my music,
Hmm.
but with videos and content creation, I guess maybe it comes down to more passion, or I just feel like it's a more tangible field to get into because there's so many direct ways to make money. Like YouTube AdSense is very straightforward.
Mm.
Anyone can film in their bedroom. It's not like an artist, there's a much higher barrier to entry becoming an artist, or like a football
Mm.
player. Like I'm going to get into the NFL, even though the odds are not stacked in your favor at all. Like the barrier to entry is the lowest it possibly could be with content creation. So I think that's where much of my confidence comes from, because I can tell that it's the one field that is the most tangible for the average person to get into versus like, I mean, how do you even get into the NFL? It's like an impossibility to me. But content creation, it's like anyone can do it.
Mm. Anyone could do it. I agree, but I guess there is quite a big there's a large gradient, right? To like NFL is a category right at the sort of the pinnacle of achievement in football, right? And I think you need to have some very specific some very specific talents to get that far. But I think, I mean, as much as there are many ways, many different ways to succeed in content creation, there is, while the barrier to entry is low, the level of achievement, the level of skill that needs to be acquired before meeting some appreciable level of success. I think that that's still quite a high bar to hit.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to acknowledge like what is considered good enough to someone, because I've mentioned this many times that to one person, like one man's trash is another man's treasure, and
Sure.
someone making just a couple $1,000s a month from YouTube would be life changing. There's nothing more that I possibly could want. This is incredible. But there
Mm,
are, the Balenciaga lovers of the world that need 30 grand a month. They need 100
mm,
grand a month. And only then will they be happier. So they believe.
mm,
And to me, I've probably fallen into, I don't know, maybe like the 30 grand a month category, where like it's a very, very high salary, but it's not like, I'm Jake Paul, Logan Paul, making millions and millions of dollars. Like that's exorbitant to me. Identifying that level of success will then kind of hone in your expectations a bit, because I think that it's a lot easier to picture yourself succeeding when your bar is not, the NFL is such a high bar where, you make $8 million over the 2-year contract or something. And that's like unfathomable to most people. But like most people could imagine making $2,000 a month from YouTube.
mm,
And so you're like, okay, I could do that. I mean, it's only 2 grand a month. It's nothing insane. And and I think when you break up your goals into bite-sized milestones, like 30 grand a month, that's still insane. But I could imagine going from 2 grand to 5 grand to 10 grand, like breaking it
sure.
up.
Yeah.
And then that way I'm not as like intimidated by the prospect of succeeding, because I know that I'm not expecting to make $1 billion or something,
Mm,
something
mhm.
completely ridiculous.
What are your thoughts on how the goalpost shifts? So today you feel, 30 grand a month would be the dream, the goal. That's great. I would be so happy if I made 30 grand a month. But then once you hit that, what are your thoughts? I suppose you've gone through it to some degree with your Minecraft content, in that, and I'm sure when you started, you were thinking, oh, it's the X number of views would be fantastic. But then once you topped 1 million views for a video, you're thinking like,
Yeah.
I'm not as satisfied with this anymore. So what are your thoughts on that? On how to deal with standards from shifting?
Well, humans are insatiable. There is absolutely no getting around that. And I still remember when I had my old channel, and
Mhm.
I had my first video pop off, and it was at like 3,000 views overnight.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, this is incredible. Like
Yeah.
the endorphins were raging, and I just could not fathom that, 80 comments were on the video for me to respond to. And back then that was amazing. But now when I upload a talking video and it gets 3,000 views in a day, I'm like, eh, like, and it's funny, and
Yeah.
like, while I want to imagine that when I hit 30 grand a month that I will be satisfied, I know that you're probably right, and there probably will be a little bit of like, just a little bit more.
Mm,
What's 40 grand a month? What's 50 grand a month?
mhm.
And I think when it comes to at least financial goals, it's very important to identify like what your expenses are and what you need to live, and then anything beyond that is just a bonus. That's how I would treat it.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
like I look at people that make a ton of money and I'm like,
Hmm.
they can't possibly be spending all of that. Like, surely they're saving or investing most of it. I would hope, right? And I know that with myself right now, I'm very content living on 3 grand a month, probably. And anything beyond that, I'm like, I don't even know how I would spend this money. And I know I'm still very young and I don't have children or trips or a mortgage and all this stuff, right? But I just cannot imagine having 50 grand a month or something ridiculous and being like, this is not enough. I just can't, I can't picture that. And maybe
Yeah.
I'll get that to that point, but I feel like I have the self control where the goalpost would not just infinitely scale,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not sustainable.
That's an interesting point. I think a lot of what makes, I don't want to say living necessarily, but let's call it a career, loosely a career. A lot of what makes a career or a hobby or some sort of a pursuit enjoyable is the feeling of progress, right? I mean, that's why we play video games, right? It's because we have very tangible levels where things are getting harder, but we are getting better, right? And so maybe when you get to that level of success, right, it's all of your basic living needs for yourself, your family, your loved ones, whatever, everything is covered. You don't need more money. But if it's accurate to say that you're sort of playing the game for the sake of playing the game at that point, like extra money is not money that will translate into something necessarily. It's just for to say, like, oh, I made more this month than I made last month. Like I'm getting better at playing this game. What are your thoughts?
I think it just depends on what's enough though. And like, if you don't identify why you're even playing the game in the first place, like for me,
Hmm.
what grounds me to playing the game is this end goal of owning a nice property for my family and maybe helping out with my friends' mortgages and giving people the life that I want to give them.
Hmm.
But if you're just, cranking out videos for the sake of making them, and your paycheck grows with, exponential gain, but you don't know why you're doing it, then I think for the vast 99% of people, that will result in burnout. Guaranteed. I don't think
Hmm.
anyone has the mental fortitude to just be going through it aimlessly and playing the game for no reason, because
Hmm.
it's like my girlfriend's ex-friend, it's like
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
get to the end of the when you get to that final level and you've become
Hmm.
the neurosurgeon, you've graduated, you're making 300,000 $400,000 a year, then what? Like I said, humans are insatiable and you're going to look for the next thing to do. And I know that when I hit 30 and I'm semi-retired, I'm going to look for the next thing to do. I know I'm going to. It's not like I'm just going to like laze back in my chair and stop playing the game. I'm going to look for a new game to play. And
Hmm.
it might not be financial, but it's going to be something to occupy your time, because that's just how we operate. That's why we've made it as far as we have throughout history, because we've always been looking for the next thing to do. And now we're looking to go to Mars. And it's ridiculous
Yeah.
what humans attempt to do, but I think it's just in our nature to look for the next mountain to climb.
And so the moving of the goalpost then to serve a purpose, I suppose, it needs to be to do something. It needs to be for the function of doing something more, is what you're saying?
Yeah, without purpose, you will eventually fall off. I think
Mm,
it's not going to, like, the furnace will run out of fuel if you're not giving a
hmm.
reason as to why it's burning in the first place. I presume you're much deeper in your 20s than I am, and as you look towards switching up, going to YouTube content, and you've very radically changed your field, what is your goalpost, and what game are you playing now that you weren't before?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit funny. When I saw that question, as someone presumably at the tail end of their 20s, I'm I'm 25. But what game am I playing? To be honest, I don't have a concrete set of goalposts that I've set up for myself for I think a couple of reasons. So I used to be a planner, right? I'd always be that guy that had, you need, in 5 years, I'm going to be doing this. In 10 years, I'm going to be married. In 15 years, I'm going to have a house and 3 kids, whatever. Like that was sort of the plan, right? But, like shit never goes according to plan. And so I started talking to people who are traditionally successful, I suppose, right? They're happy with what they do. They make enough money to make a decent living, right? And I asked them about, tell me about your story, right? How did you get to where you are? And how did you feel at those stages that you were at before you got to where you are now? Right. And they tell a story, right, of how this event led to that event, led to that event, and now I'm here and I'm happy. I think in retrospect, those things, I mean, people are good at deducing causality, right? And making causality where it doesn't necessarily exist. And so in our heads, this seems like a very well crafted story of like, well, A led to B, led to C, led to D. And so it's inevitable that you're now at E, right? But I think when you're going through it in the moments, that series of events is not clear. And so when I asked them, how did you feel at that time? What did you have in mind? What did you want to do? What was your next step? What were you looking to do a long time horizon away from today? Right. And some people, they had the whole plan, I wanted to be a scientist from the start. And that's exactly what I did. Right. But more often than not, I found that their path was a lot more meandering. They found something that they were interested in, they decided to pursue it, and they decided to see how things went. And so for someone who was always trying to plan, 3, 5, 7, 10 years ahead, and for someone who, for the most part, plans didn't work out, I thought that seemed like a more reasonable way of going about things. Because if the plan's not going to work out anyway, I might as well figure out what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about today, and this will lead to some doors opening. I guess this is a, a pretty long-winded way of saying that right now I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in doing the things that I'm doing. I like making videos. I like thinking about sort of the issues that I discuss in those videos. I very much enjoy getting to share them with people and to hear what people have to say about their own experiences, what they had in common, what they didn't have in common, issues that they're experiencing on their own. And for now, I think that's enough for now. In the future, of course, who knows how things will change, right? Right now, I don't have very many obligations outside of what I'm passionate about and what I want to achieve in my career. Maybe when the day comes, or the day comes in the near future where I need to start making sizable amounts of money or need to start supporting a family, then those goals will start to change. But I think for now, I'm pretty happy.
That's
Yeah.
I think that is the way to live life, honestly, because humans are very bad at predicting things, or on a long enough time scale, the amount of factors that influence your future are unknowable. Life has a funny way of taking you routes that you never imagined you would take. And while I hope that I will be at that dream, I'm perfectly okay with the fact that maybe it'll be completely different than I imagine. And that's okay. Like the harder you try for something to work
Mhm.
out, often the less likely it will actually occur. And if you just kind of, I don't want to say let the universe take control because it seems a little bit too out there, but when
Sure.
when you relinquish a bit of your autonomy in that way, and you say, well, I'll try, but I won't be upset if it goes a completely different route. Then I think we'll
Mhm.
be okay. But now that you're doing YouTube content, what would you say your, maybe not end goal, because that was kind of contrary to what I just said, but your current plan or reasoning for doing what you do? Like, why are you making content?
There are a couple of different reasons for that. I think the first is that it's a really good way I found it's a good way for me to sort things out in my own head. The experiences that I've had, reflecting on those, what I can learn from those, and how I can apply that moving forward. And so forcing myself to package this into, a 3-minute video that somebody will find interesting makes me organize it in such a way that it makes sense and that I can extract some value out of my own life. There is that. I think it's fun, to be honest. The process is very annoying at times, as I'm sure you know. It's very frustrating at times, but to be able to put something together that you're proud of making at the end of the day and put it up for people to share, I think it's fun. And especially when other people also think that it's meaningful or helpful in some way in their lives, I think that's really rewarding. The final reason is the least pure one, I would say, in that it's certainly a means to an end. I don't plan to make videos for the sake of making videos for the rest of my life, right? Even though now I'm content to be making, I just got monetized yesterday. Actually, I made my first
Congratulations.
$14.70.
There we
Thank
go.
you. But at this point, it's not something that I need urgently.
Right.
But at some point, similar to yourself, as I get into my 30s, it is something that I would like to have. It is a resource that I would like to have, not for the sake of having it, but for having the freedom that it affords,
Right.
right? In supporting your family, your loved ones, in doing what you would like to do, and not really having to worry about the consequences of that.
Let me ask you this. Since you came from a high paying field, already having at least a pretty large amount of success to most people's standards of having that high paying doctor job, and then you come to YouTube in pursuit of your passion, how does the, I guess, maybe validation or happiness you extract from the content compare to the validation of being a doctor? In that, for me, when I started making content and I got that first video that blew up and going at 3,000 views, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. That was
Yeah.
like the crowning achievement of my life at that point. It was the
Mhm.
most fulfilling thing that I had ever done. But I'm curious about your perspective when you came from something that was already very successful and you were already making a lot of money and you decided to come to this. Was there, like, was YouTube just as fulfilling, or was it very different?
That's a tough one. I suppose it took us the last few years to learn that we're pretty social creatures. I'm a pretty introverted guy, but even so, we're pretty social creatures, right? And I think it's the rare person that can derive 100% of their fulfillment from strictly the work that they do and not the people that it involves in one way or another. And so in working as an optometrist, right, seeing patients, it's fulfilling. Part of the work is fulfilling in for what it is, right? I get to meet people, I get to learn about their problems, I get to fix their problems, right? And in some sense, that in and of itself is fulfilling. I'm fixing someone else's problems. I get a little hit from that. There's cannot deny that there's a bit of an ego behind that. But the biggest part I would say is the person, right? It's different from I've never worked as an auto mechanic or as a computer person, but if we were to separate the people from that, I would suspect that the fulfillment that comes from fixing a person's problems is different from fixing a machine because it involves the actual person behind it. A lot of the fulfillment then comes from that person appreciating what I've done and thanking me for it, right? Of feeling grateful for, oh shit, I went to see the doctor today and I had this really big problem and they were able to fix it for me. I feel so thankful. I feel so happy now. Right. I think that sense of connection is where the biggest part of the fulfillment comes from. Right. But a big part of that is not up to you. Right. It's up to the other person. It's up to how they view you, how they view the profession, how they view what they got out of something. Right. And so, I see a patient, I found a problem. Right. I tell them, you know, I examine you, you have this kind of a problem. We got to do something about it.
Mm.
But then they say, I don't believe you. You just want to sell me on whatever, some scan or some glasses or whatever. That's crushing, right? Because I'm here, I have your best interests at heart, but you think that I'm in it for some other reason. And so while there's definitely an aspect of fulfillment in that, yeah, I mean, there's still going to be patients that are very happy with the care that you provide. And there's also the aspect of the financial aspect we cannot ignore, right? Because there's a sense of satisfaction of, I've made some money today, right? I'm one step closer to whatever, buying a house. There's a cap, right? It only goes so far. In doing YouTube and making videos, I would say that it's a different kind of fulfillment for sure. There's an element more so that I'm pushing boundaries that I have not, or I'm flexing muscles that I have not really flexed before. I have not tried to make something so creatively ever, and it's challenging. right? As I'm sure you can relate to, it's hard to make things creatively, to express yourself in that kind of a way, and to make it in a way that's at least somewhat interesting. But being proud of that product, I think in and of itself is a fulfilling. But what makes it more fulfilling on top of that is, as I'm sure you know, when people, they leave comments, they provide you with feedback, even if it's bad, right? They say, yeah, I think this is a stupid idea. It's like, I don't even know why you went through this.
Right.
It's nice to see, because people are responding, people care about the stuff that you're talking about, people share their experiences. I have a question for you about you have a 9 to 5 currently.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the YouTube is part-time, yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do you approach the day job?
Well, it's remote, which helps
Mhm.
tremendously. I am quite easily able to pivot my desk. They're literally set up at an L where I can just turn my chair,
Nice. Yeah.
and I I'm probably in the most optimal environment that I could be to get towards my dream, because I know that if I had to go to an office and then you commute, so between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. I'm not home, and then I have to come home and be creative. I don't know if I would want to. I feel like I would just like, let me just turn my brain off. I cannot possibly
Mm.
do this. But yeah, the job is absolutely facilitating this.
And so would you say that the job, your 9 to 5, is something that you do because you derive at least some fulfillment from it, or is it purely a means to enable your creative outlet
The,
and your sort of that enterprise?
the latter, absolutely the latter. There is
Yeah.
absolutely nothing creatively fulfilling about it. It's like
Hmm.
dry software work. So
Yeah.
it's it's the kind of thing where I am very grateful for it. I would not want to give it up because it is so easy and it is
Hmm.
so optimal for my job of, or my dream of getting YouTube as a job. But it is definitely not the long-term plan, because I know that
Mm.
it's not. I was not put here on Earth to test for bugs in software. You know.
Yeah, amen to that. I know you turn it as sort of as a matter of speaking, but do you feel as though there is you have a higher purpose, that people have a higher purpose, in or outside of religion?
I mean, purpose is a funny word because it is so intrinsically tied to religion, and people believe that you are put here intentionally. I don't
Mhm.
believe that I was intentionally put here, but I do believe that everyone is given a certain set of natural skills, or as one of the questions I put, your unfair advantages, right? Things that you're
Mhm.
just naturally good at that some people just don't have the knack for. Like, I'm pretty good at writing, I would say, and
Mhm.
communicating, but I'm not very good at math or physics. And
Mhm.
some people are just naturally born to do certain things. And I guess with the skills that I've been given, my natural purpose would be to find some way to monetize my communication skills, because
Mhm.
most people, maybe not most, but a lot of people don't have that skill, and their purpose is to do something completely different. Maybe it's a lot more technical, or some people are very good at charismatically getting people together, and they're good leaders, right? Like, I'm much more introverted. I don't know if I would be a good like manager or leader like that, but
Mhm.
yeah, in that regard, I definitely have a purpose to just like talk, I guess. Which
Mhm.
maybe it's a little bit egotistical to believe that you're worth listening
Yeah.
to, but I just feel like there's got to be something that I can do communication wise that will result in a career.
Yeah, I think you're a very good speaker. You're quite well spoken.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think as an introvert, that's those things don't generally. You would think that they wouldn't go well together, right? Because you keep it to yourself, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, yeah, you're very well spoken.
I
Yeah.
think it's the kind of thing where putting yourself in uncomfortable environments like YouTube, and especially being on
Mm.
camera on YouTube, forces you to learn. And you kind of,
Mm.
it's kind of like you got to get better quickly. And
Yeah.
I think that I wasn't necessarily bad at communicating at all in high school and college, but when I started this channel, I was kind of forced to become better at writing good scripts that are compelling,
Mm.
or
Hmm.
speaking into a microphone that isn't just like super timid and awkward and
Yeah, yeah,
cringy.
yeah,
You kind of have to
yeah,
like
yeah.
have a bit of a vibrato and kind of speak yourself up a bit. And so I've kind of like put myself in an environment where you would probably get better at communicating naturally, because that's just the,
Hmm.
that's the profession.
Sort of as an aside, I'm curious. Do you script all of your videos, and do you read? I suppose maybe read is not the right word, but do you follow the script when you verbalize things quite closely, or are you sort of freewheeling?
Well, it's interesting because basically every single Minecraft talking video I ever did was scripted.
Hmm.
It was like how to enjoy Minecraft again, the video where I talked about, how to the title self-explanatory,
Sure.
and that was completely scripted. But the interesting thing, and I think that this is a very helpful tip for making you sound less robotic, is I would intentionally leave in the ums and the ands and the filler words in the
Mm,
script, and that way I actually got quite a few comments of like, wait, is this scripted? Because it doesn't sound like it is. And it's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I've almost like scratched the record a bit. I've made it a little bit messier and it's not
yeah.
so polished. And that way people, relate to it a little bit more and they feel like I'm a real person versus like a caricature, a corporate figure. And
Sure.
and now with the in-person stuff, I don't script them at all. At most I'll have my laptop with bullet points to the side, but
Yeah,
I just felt like if it's in person and the video is long enough, I'm not going to have a teleprompter. That's ridiculous.
yeah. That's not a good vibe.
And then I would be like looking off to the side and it doesn't feel as genuine. So
Mm,
it's off the cuff, man. It's from the heart most of
yeah.
the time. And like I said, that is the the most sink or swim way to do it, where you
Mm,
have to get better at speaking if you're going to speak in person with no script at all. And
mm,
and I did some videos a few months ago where I was sitting on my couch and
yeah.
I just felt like looking back on them, I'm like, God, I was so awkward. Like I was so bad at speaking,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and even in this short period of time, I've already gotten it better. And it's just like when you get those reps in, when you practice, you're just gonna get better naturally. It's a
yeah,
inevitability. Do you know Ali Abdal?
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he would be the model to emulate for any ex or current academic kind of people that want to make content, because
Hmm.
I believe he started out making content purely about med school tips for
Hmm.
people that
Yeah.
want to study in the UK specifically. But he just has this aura of like intelligence and composure to him. But I can tell that, you know, it's not something that has to be so I would say like rigid, where people think that if you're a book smarts person that you cannot be charismatic or you cannot have a an aura on YouTube that people would like, because he very much gives me that vibe, but it's also inviting and it's like you feel like you're learning from him. And I feel like
Hmm.
that is like every time I watch one of your videos, I'm like, this is just like Ali Abdal in the past. And like that's where you could end up, because
Uh-huh.
it's like combining academics with the communication that you need on YouTube, and then boom, you've got a winning formula.
Yeah. Well, I suppose Ali Abdal's made it to some degree,
He
so
has, yeah.
that's certainly inspiring to hear that maybe I'm on the right track.
I mean, how would you say, who would you say you are most trying to emulate, or who would you say you look up to on the platform?
So it's funny that you bring up Ali Abdal because it's, I mean, there's a sphere in YouTube around sort of academics, ex-academics, productivity people
Mm-hmm.
who make that kind of content, right? Like Ali Abdal, Zach Hiley, they're kind of in the same sphere of creators. Ali Abdal was one of the people that I mostly looked up to, especially when starting out, because he seems like kind of the archetype, right, of how you become successful as a creator, as you said, as an ex-doctor, ex-academic type of person disseminating knowledge, right? He set up the whole business model of how to do it. But I think the farther that I get into it, the more I'm trying to draw inspiration from other people as well. It's, I mean, for one, it's not good to try to be a mimic of someone else because it's not authentic to me, right? Like his personality on camera is not my personality, nor is it my personality on camera. And so mimicking that, at best, I'm going to be second best to Ali Abdal, right? So there are a couple of YouTubers that I have been trying to draw inspiration from. Have you heard of Life of Riza?
I have. I love her
Yeah.
content. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really good. I think she has a really nice sort of organic, calming vibe where she's just talking about issues that she's going through in her 20s, hanging out with her boyfriend, doing life things, whatever. And it's very nice. It's
And
very cinematic.
the,
It's
the
very
filming,
pleasing.
the filming is
You know,
amazing.
it's very cinematic. Yeah, very very pleasing. And so that's somewhere that I'm drawing inspiration from. There are a couple of filmmaking YouTubers that focus on making sort of cinematic type content that I think like visual storytelling. There's a guy, I think he's maybe quite small. I think he's like 10K subs. His name is Bai Alman. He has some really good stuff, some really nice sequences that I've been trying to mimic to learn from. So trying to get things from a number of different places. I don't it's kind of funny. The productivity sphere on YouTube, I'm is I'm sure if you watch Ali Abdal, you've seen some of the stuff. It's what I was going for initially, but I think the more that I make videos, the more I'm starting to realize that it's maybe not the healthiest place to be. It's a fine line between trying to spend your life well and trying to find fulfillment. It's a very, very fine line between that and hating yourself for
Mm,
not spending your time well. And that's a that's a balance that I don't have down, right? And so to be making content about that, I think would be difficult, and I would not feel confident or comfortable in providing any sort of advice of how to navigate that because it's not something that I figured out yet for myself. And so it's not a sphere that I want to be in, not wholly at least.
hmm I get that. That it's definitely true with health productivity, especially. There was a guy, Brian Johnson. You may or may not have heard of him. He's a fairly new creator. He's like 40 something, and he sold a company for like $800 million. So now he has like a ton of money to
Yeah,
work with, and so
sure.
he's dedicated his life now to spending like $2 million a year on his body to reverse aging, to live.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you do know
Yes, I
him.
have heard of this guy. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
he like transfused his son's blood or something like
Yeah,
that,
he
right?
does some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of this guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the pinnacle of extreme. There's no one doing it of that level than him. And not that I think that he's doing it because he feels like his like I don't get the vibe that he has a giant ego and he wants to be like the number one health guru. But I do think that there's elements of him like taking 108 pills in the morning and night or whatever it is. And like,
Yeah.
is this really what the human existence is about? Are we really meant to be here to spend all day inside because the air quality is a little bit lower, a little bit worse than it should be? Or, just things where you're limiting yourself. Like you're not eating pizza, you're not drinking beer because that would be unhealthy once a year or something like that, right? And
Sure.
I'm not saying that I think he never has those like cheat days where you have a pizza, you have a pancake or something. But I feel like it's very easy to go down that slippery slope of I'm going to restrict myself to the absolute extremes. And with productivity content, it's like if you're not being productive, then you're a loser. And lots of people think
Mm-hmm.
that way, and they think that
Yeah.
like if I'm not disciplined, my life is over. And it's just it's just something that I think you need to really look at your life and like, is this really how I want to live? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think most people want to live with such restrictive boundaries like that.
It's a tough balance, right? 'Cause you see people who are mega successful and you assume that they're happy, right? And you see the curated sort of content that they put out about how they live their lives. Like there are so many memes about the perfect morning routine or whatever stuff like that, right? And
Right.
you feel like, oh, shit, to be successful and to be happy, I need to live like this. And then it gets tied up in sort of issues of self-image and shit, how am I living my life? How should I be living my life? Like maybe I'm just an absolute loser because I spent the last 10 minutes on TikTok or whatever. And so it's difficult. It's difficult, right? If you can have the beer and the pizza and you feel happy and you feel like, I deserve this beer and this pizza and this experience was worth it, then that's great. But I think if that turns into inevitably a lot of I'm a pig, like a lot of guilt and the feelings of sort of self-hatred about it, then it's not really the place you want to be. But it's really tough to navigate, man. I don't know if this was an issue prior to, I suppose this sphere got big maybe in the last, what, like 5 years, 7 years, something like that. I don't know if this was such a big issue at the time.
In a way, social media and the ability for average normal people to become very successful online has grown massively in those past 5 to 7 years. And as more people become successful, more people are watching that content, and they realize that if they want to also be successful, they have to do what they did. And
Mm,
it's kind of like a self-perpetuating cycle where the more successful people are online, the more people watch it, and then the more people that want to feel that way. And it's kind of like beauty standards, where my mom has talked about, like, she can't imagine being a young woman in today's world where you now have
mm,
so many
mm,
societal expectations of beauty, and this is how you need to dress yourself and wear all this makeup and you have to look perfect. And I don't think everyone believes that, but a lot of women do. A lot of people believe that they have to manicure themselves to look a certain way. And when she was growing up in the 80s, none of that was really a concern. You kind of just like lived how you wanted to, and no one was concerned about your likes because it didn't exist. But
yeah.
but now, like, I think a lot of what my um, financial obligations I've put on myself are come from social media. And I've told
Mm,
myself, when I see other people building massive properties and they have the dreamiest place in the world and they have an amazing family, it's like, well, I need that too. But
mm,
I wonder if I grew up my entire life in a sleepy village in Ireland and I didn't have anyone around me telling, like, yeah, you need to be a millionaire. If I didn't have those influences, then I might not want to do it at all. And it's just a matter of who you surround yourself with and how, like, chronically online you are.
that is a really good point. That is a really good point. I suppose it's hard to disconnect as well, even if you were growing up in a sleepy village in Ireland. It's you can't. I'm sure you'd have an internet connection probably, and so it's hard to escape from that kind of thing. But I suppose another part of it is that it's. I think this is a common complaint of people in our generation is that it's not enough to have a normal job anymore. Like I'm based in Toronto, right? And it's not livable here if you have a quote unquote normal job, right? Like you make a median salary of 50 to 70K, like even six figures, right? You make low six figures, 100K, it's hard. It's hard to sort of do this traditional route of, buy a house, have kids, buy a car, have a nice life in the suburbs. You can't do that
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And so there's extra pressure, I think, to now be that mega successful. Shit, I need to be making seven figures, or I'm not going to have a comfortable life. I guess we've sort of skipped a step in the middle in
Yeah.
that there is something between being a normal median income person and a mega billionaire.
Right. And like, the only reason that I can live in my apartment is because I have
Mm,
YouTube and I have Patreon and I have these other income sources.
mm,
I have like five income
mhm.
sources now between my job and all of
Wow.
these extra
Yeah.
things, right? And that's the only way that I can do it. Because
Yeah.
if I only had my one job, then I would inevitably have to get on the job hunt and I would have to get a higher paying job. And
Hmm.
I've seen my sister struggle like hell going. She went all the way to New York and she took a train ride and did the whole interview and they said, "Sorry." They rejected her. And you
Yikes.
went through all that work just to start back from where you were. And I mean, yeah, you got the experience of the trip under your belt, and I guess that's not a total loss, but like, my current job pays about 50,000. If I wanted to get to 80,000, I would have to probably spend months interviewing and going through all this bullshit that I don't want to go through. And I
Hmm.
think I think that's why social media has taken off the way it has, because it's kind of a rejection of the modern system, where
Hmm.
if you don't want to play by their rules of go to New York, get rejected, go through 6 months, 8 rounds of job interviews, then just start a YouTube channel, or like
Hmm.
start some sort of business online. And I'm not saying that's easy or simple at all, but I am saying that I essentially gave myself the raise that I was looking for, because I could not get it, or I didn't want to
Yeah.
participate in that system. I saw how my sister struggled and I went, I am not going to put myself through that, and just to fulfill someone else's career, like, just to
Hmm.
make someone else, some other CEO richer. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do my own thing,
Hmm.
and I'm going to, you know, get the money myself. And it's a lot more ambiguous. There's no guarantee. I will admit that I got, maybe not lucky, but I definitely was very fortunate this past year to make the money that I did. But I'm so happy that I got that experience and got validated in that way, because now this year I'm like, okay, now I can actually maybe double what I did last year. And I've got that
Hmm.
confidence versus someone that has never done
Hmm.
it before and they probably think, well, I can't do that. You know, that's only for the special people. Only the
Right.
smart people can become successful. And it's not true at all.
I suppose in some sense the 1 to 10 is easier than the 0 to 1.
Right.
You know that it can be done.
Right.
It's just knowing that it can be done is the hard part.
Well, it is kind of like the rich get richer. And I saw a title recently on some video, and it was like your first 100,000 is the hardest part, but then
Mm.
once you get beyond that, it gets exponentially easier, if for no other reason than compound interest. And the more money you have, the more money you gain, right?
Yeah, sure.
But it's especially true with success, and I mean that's a pretty intangible thing. But the more confident and validated you are, the more likely you are to try new things and say, well, I've done this before, so I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Mm.
starting from literally nothing and you have no confidence whatsoever, then it's probably pretty difficult to convince yourself to even try, to even start.
Are you familiar with Alex Hermosi?
Yep.
Yeah, he seems like another guy in that sphere, huh?
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that he says, in that your confidence comes from sort of the path that you have behind you and the things that you have done.
Mm-hmm.
It's incontrovertible evidence that it can be done because you did it. And so moving forward, it's you know that you can do it. So what's stopping you?
Well, one of my friends, I've mentioned this in a video, he's never dated anyone really. And he's had
Okay.
a lot of trouble with getting ghosted by girls on Tinder, and has just had a history of rejection. And
Oh, yikes.
he started to form opinions that, well, there must be something about women, like he has a chip on his shoulder, that women are just like, they want this, they want that, and like it's the world is out to get me, essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
and then I come at him like, I mean, it's hard for me to advise him because I'm coming from the bias of having basically only one long-term relationship since I was 15 that I still have, and I haven't like,
Congratulations.
thank you, and I haven't like participated in the dating world. But I can just see from him of like, when you've been just getting the shit kicked out of you for years and there's no positive reinforcement in your life, then how could I judge him for forming the opinions that he has? Because like, I can't put myself in his shoes, you know? And when someone has had no commercial success, their career has been a complete flop their entire life, then I can see how you would form opinions that the world is out to get you. And and it's only reserved for the special people. And I mean, who's to say that like me succeeding last year was just like right place, right time, and I just like where luck met preparation, and I just happened to do well, and now I have the confidence. And I don't know if I did anything in particular to deserve that. I just happened to have it, and now this next year I have more, that accumulation of advantage, where the more success you get, then the next year will be even better and even better. Whereas if you have an accumulation of disadvantage, like my friend, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse if you don't address the root cause, I think.
So I used to play this game called League of Legends, right?
I
Have you
did.
heard of it?
I play a lot of League.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Nice. So as I'm sure it's you flame your teammates, right? Your teammates flame you a lot.
Yeah.
But the issue there is that if you flame people, you're never going to get better, right? Like I was stuck in, I don't know, in bronze or silver or something for the longest time because I was just like, shit, I just get the worst teams every single game.
Right.
But that perpetuates on itself, right? If you're continuing to blame other people and never looking in, then you're never going to get better at something, I think. So once I embrace, like, it's not these people that are dog, it's actually me. Like,
Right.
I'm just bad.
Yep.
Right. Then things start to improve. I think it becomes tough when, even after you've embraced that, or even after you've had that attitude, perhaps from the start, that you're still not getting the results that you look for. I think it takes a great degree of resolve to maintain that attitude that, you know, these things are happening because I am not yet at the level where I can make them happen, as opposed to flipping it now on the inside or out to the outside to say, well, society is broken. I wasn't meant to succeed. And I'm not condemning those people at all, because I can see how after multiple efforts at something, lots of failed businesses or failed dates or whatever, you would start to hate everything outside of you and think that everything is turned against you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's hard, man. I don't know what the solution for that would be.
Well, for me, the solution was to only play ARAM because I just got tired of playing ranked, and I was like, I am done. I cannot do this anymore. But no, in all seriousness, I think it just takes a massive amount of humility to recognize that the world is not out against you. Maybe you've been at the wrong place at the wrong time. But at the end of the day, there's something about you. There's a pattern, and that's what's the
Mm,
problem is. Like my friend, he must have something about him that women don't like, and he needs to address that.
mm,
And it takes a lot of humility to recognize that
mm.
there's something within me that sucks. And you don't want to admit that. You don't want to admit that you're bad because no, I'm perfect, right? There's nothing wrong with
Sure,
me.
yeah.
But like with my videos, I'll post a video and I'm like, why are they not getting good views? And it's literally just
Mm,
as simple as they're bad. It's a bad video. It's not optimized to get good views. And it's like, I guess, but like you don't want to admit that. You don't want to admit that you just spent all this time on this video for it to flop and you're like, well, there must be the algorithm is out to get me. You know, something
yeah.
is always out there that's stacked against your favor. But it's like, no, you just made something that was not good and you need to get
Mhm,
better at it. It's that simple.
mm.
And Mr. Beast has said that a lot where he's like, if your videos aren't doing well, just make better videos. And it's like, well, duh. I mean, of course, but
Yeah.
it is that simple, honestly. It's like it wasn't good enough.
It's a
And
tough pill to swallow.
yeah, it is. How would you say that's influenced your life? Have you had anything where you just like had to really recognize that you were doing it poorly and you had to reevaluate your choices?
I mean, I certainly for that for videos, that's something that I can relate to, certainly, especially in the beginning. And that's always the hardest part, right? Is the beginning. You're learning there are like 50 million different things to learn, like audio and video and focus and lenses and editing and all this kind of thing. And you put 15 hours into a video, it comes out and five people watch it, and one of those people is your mom. My video is fucking fire, man. Why is nobody watching this?
Yep.
And it's yeah, that's definitely an example of where I had to, look at myself and look at my video and say, your video is not doing well because it. As we wrap up here, what are some of the goals that you have or ways that you're thinking about the next year or two?
I guess at this point it would be to not do any worse than I did last year because this is
Mm,
the first year, the first full year that I'll have been on YouTube,
mm-hmm,
and it will be I'm coming in with a much more business focused mindset than I was the previous year because last year I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And when I had those videos pop up, I was like, oh god, like I hope I don't screw this up. And I kind of like I probably didn't capitalize as much as I could have off of that success
mm,
because I just didn't know what I was doing. But
mm,
now I have almost a year behind me, and I just want to ensure that doing this new type of content is able to reach at least the same amount of success I had last year, maybe
mm,
financially, because that's just a good way to track it. So in that regard, I am kind of expecting a certain number in mind, which might be a little bit self-destructive, but I feel like it's a motivator to maybe feel like you're not going backwards, and
mm.
to have that confirmation that no, you're doing it right. Just keep going, and you will eventually hit your end goal for me, which is just make a lot of money, I guess. But
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um,
Not quite. You said it's the lots of land and the houses with your friends, right?
that is the goal, but it is tied to needing a lot of money. So
Mm, yeah.
they're intrinsically related. But I would also say just I'm posting a video tomorrow, I think, called Positive Momentum, and I
Mm,
am talking about how since the new year, I've been able to do daily uploads of long form videos, podcast episodes, and shorts. I've done one of each every single day. And I've been able to keep this snowball going. And I guess that would be a goal. Not that I expect to do the entire year of that pace, but just maintaining my daily routine of doing something for YouTube, doing something to
mm,
facilitate my dream, because I think when you take a day off or when you don't think about it for a while, then getting back into it takes a lot more effort. But if you keep
mm,
up, I mean, I don't want to say keep up the treadmill because it sounds a little bit depressing, but when you just do something every day and you condition your brain to say, at some point in the day, I'm going to do something for my dream, then it's a lot more digestible to keep on track. So
mm,
just
mm.
keeping up the pace, I would say, is my goal. Yeah, I really just want to say I appreciate you coming on here because I feel like um I've been needing the validation of just talking with other people in the space because
Mm,
YouTube's a very lonely job. And when you don't reach out to people and you don't just try, then it's
mm,
very easy to get in your own head about if you're on the right, track. And just
mm,
conversing with someone else and Like I cannot imagine doing a monologue video for 2 hours straight, but that went by like nothing,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
So
no, that was really fun.
this is the way that I like to really do YouTube. It's the
Mhm.
most genuine to me, most authentic experience, I think, is just talking down with people.
We need other people, man. We need other people, and I really appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and inviting me on. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. A lot of really good things to think about.